This is Facets of Connection, where we are transforming relationships within an evolving world. Brought to you by Relational Life Foundation and hosted by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. This exclusive podcast series delves into the heart of human connection, exploring how we learn, love, and collaborate within a dynamic society. We'll uncover the power of respectful relationships and their essential role in the human experience. I invite you to embark on a journey with me to create a more connected, empathic world for future generations. Today's episode is going to be a little different. Instead of me asking the questions, I'll be the one answering them. I've invited someone very special to join me as a kind of guest host, Bev Joy Ehrlich. Bev is a valued colleague of mine, a fellow practitioner in the relational life therapy community, and someone who's become a trusted friend. As a certified RLT relational coach who cares deeply about helping couples build stronger, more connected, and resilient relationships, Bev works with partners to cultivate greater awareness, authentic expression, and mutual respect as the foundation for personal and relational growth. In our conversation, Bev turned the tables on me and guided the discussion, giving me the chance to reflect and share in a way that I usually ask my guests to. I'm excited for you to hear where she took our conversation. And with that, here we go.
We're going to be talking about intimacy through community, which is to me such a strong aspect where you reach out and bring people together, but in such a relational way. So we're going to explore the limitations of the nuclear family, which I think we often don't think about. The family model, the longing for deeper connection, which I think we all really are longing for, especially in this time of such speed, that I think we kind of miss out sometimes, that deeper connection, and how living systems and community-based intimacy offer a more sustainable and fulfilling framework for relationships. We'll also touch a little bit on your personal journey of honoring multifaceted connections. And if I may just offer, I was listening to Thomas Hübel speak, and he was talking about the resources that we sometimes, I think, forget to reach out into. And resources are not just therapists and coaches, as you and I are, but community. You don't have to find a therapist or a coach when you can find a like-minded community where you can bring and explore together. So tell us a little bit how you got here and how you brought up this concept of relationality through community.
Thanks, Bev. Already so much of what you've shared just sparks stuff for me. And I talk a lot about the beauty of human beings. Yeah. And I think that's what got me into this work. There has always been such a sweetness to being a member who belongs to something larger than myself. As a child, I noticed it in my theater community. I was part of theater groups and dance groups and gymnastics teams, and I always reveled in the joy of being part of a team, part of a group. And that's carried through through my career in a lot of ways. You asked me earlier how I got into this work, and I'll tell you, I think it was sort of by accident. I just followed my allurement. I followed what I was curious about. And human beings are so incredible that I've always been taken by getting to know people intimately. To be and be seen by another feels so juicy. Even when it's hard, it feels delicious to me. And I've been wanting to dedicate my life to helping other people access that. So I accidentally started studying group dynamics. I went into a master's program for environmental leadership. and found that I was much more drawn to the leadership side and helping create sustainable human environments. And I found a teacher there, again, by accident. I stumbled into it. I found a teacher who was teaching something called matrix works, which she was teaching how groups of people actually mimic living systems principles. We are living systems as a group of people. We are living systems as individuals, as partners, and as communities. And I can speak more about what that means a little later in our conversation. But to start, living systems are continually evolving.
Mm.
They are greater than the sum of their parts, which is what I spoke to about being a member who belongs to something bigger. And every single living system evolves from some level of destruction, from chaos. And so I learned to see difficulties within human relationships as a very exciting moment, because if we lean in with curiosity and navigate our chaos, our conflict, something even better is on the other side.
That's beautiful. There are a few things, if I may, just highlight that you've said that really resonate with me. Your choice of theatre, gymnastics, they speak into me because you created in those groups, in those communities, something beautiful to show and to be seen that you couldn't create by yourself. So even as a child, you chose paths where that would be fulfilled for you. And that was your giving back to the community. I can see you want to jump in. Tell me.
I
It
don't
seems.
think it was a choice.
Mm.
Again, it was a rather accident in my life. I was incredibly shy as a child, actually. I didn't want to be on stage. I was terrified of it. I was terrified of actually speaking my voice to the world. I
Right.
was so incredibly hidden. I was shy. I made a choice to step out of that. That's for sure. I'm thinking about what you spoke to earlier and the longing that we have to more deeply connect. I think as our world has become more and more segmented, more isolated through, behind screens, we use social media to connect in ways that, 30 years ago, that wasn't the situation. You got to really have intimate FaceTime with people in real life. And now it's a little harder to grasp that. And I imagine that most of us on this planet have a longing for deeper community, have a longing inside of us for
I
connection.
mean, our worlds are speeding up as we speak. New things are being created. And with that speed, we don't necessarily take a time to process, right? We had Corona, and the next day, oh, okay, we now can connect. And what happened to that processing? And that's where community can come in, where we can just take that pause. I know I was recording for the first time with AI some conversations, and wow, I don't have to sit and write notes, so I can get all these conversations down really quickly. But have I actually taken the time that I used to look through my notes again and see what comes up for me? Because AI is now doing that for me. So, oh, that frees me up to do the next thing and the next thing. And then that
Sure.
causes
It
that,
is helping us move
that disconnect.
faster.
Yeah. And then I
Yes.
feel there's that disconnect. And I wrote down some things that you were saying that are so beautiful, especially in the RLT world, the Relational Life Institute world, and world of Terry Real, where he speaks about our relationships being our biosphere. We're not above them, we're not below them, we're in them and we depend on them. So that's not a sign of weakness that we depend on our communities. It's actually a sign of strength that, hey, together we can create something more beautiful, which is how you put it, through the chaos. And relationships are messy, challenging, and yet if we're observant and if we make choices to create something bigger and better, we can.
Yeah, that biosphere language is one of the things that really drew me to Terry Real's work. because I already had that living systems training. And I said, this guy gets it. This guy's speaking the same language as I am. And he talks about couples being a biosphere, and maybe you include their children, right? That family system is your biosphere. And he says it behooves you to treat it well because you are part of it. So I can breathe out toxic air into my biosphere, but guess what? I'm going to breathe it right back in. So if I'm mean to my partner, that's going to impact me poorly. Yeah. So he uses it as a motivation to help individuals bring their best selves to their partnerships. But in my work, in my own personal assessment of the biosphere and living systems as human beings, I think about, well, can you imagine yourself as a tree in a forest? It's not just one tree in relationship with one other tree. It's a network, and they're all connected underground, right? And living systems actually thrive on diversity. A living system without diversity is not going to evolve. It might not even survive. And so I know some of our conversation was moving in this direction, but I'll just bring it forward. This idea that human beings are meant to partner up and stay in isolated family units, to me, that's a model that is set up to fail.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about polyamory. I'm actually just talking about insisting that we have other resources, which is the term you brought in first, that we use the community around us as a resource, that we build deeper connections with more than just one person.
Right. And that's so beautiful. It feeds into something that Carol Gilligan speaks of. She says, and that you spoke of earlier too, in order to let other people in, we need voice. And she speaks, there's no voice without relationship, and there's no relationship without voice. In other words, if we go back to your tree metaphor, if a tree falls down in the forest and there's no one to hear it, did it make a sound? We need our voice. A voice can only be heard in relationship, and relationship thrives on voice, which isn't necessarily the same. You spoke about the diversity. I have my voice. Because I'm not living with myself exclusively, I have to bring in your voice. And from there we can grow.
Absolutely. And I know this isn't exactly what you're intending to say, but I can't hear those words without thinking of the inequalities that exist all over our planet. And when I think about voice, I think about making sure that we are inclusive in who we're bringing in to our communities and making sure everyone has equal voice. I spoke about building community around us. To me, that can't be done unless you have an inclusive mindset.
Yeah, we pause there a sec. I'd love to hear more about that because I was in another conversation today about that. Inclusive, and this other person was maintaining that if we want to maintain our culture, then maybe we're not inclusive. She comes from Australia, and she was saying, I drive down the street and I see Korean signs. Then I know this is where the Korean community resides. Then I drive further down a few more blocks and I see Indian foods, and and I know, oh, this is where the Indian community lives. That's not necessarily that they want to exclude, but they want to maybe maintain their culture. And the way we were speaking about it could be quite a positive thing. So I'm interested to hear more on your thoughts of including everyone, or should we say no, we don't, we want to water down our culture? I'm not sure.
I think when we bring in the idea of culture, this conversation becomes really complex. Yeah, culture is worth preserving. Absolutely. And there's so many microcultures within bigger cultures.
Right.
there's a culture that I have in my partnership that I don't bring into every relationship that I have, right? So there's so much nuance here. And I want to be careful I don't overgeneralize around culture, because that could be a whole other topic of conversation. But what you're speaking to makes me remember something that I've read from Priya Parker. Do you know who that is?
No, tell me.
She's a woman who wrote a book called The Art of Gathering.
Mm.
She talks about how to create meaningful gatherings. And I just love her work because it so aligns with the way that I bring communities together and try to create meaningful relationship in networks. But she does speak to how it's important to sometimes decide who you are including and who you're not including. And that creates meaningful culture. For instance, if we have a gathering and everybody is invited, then suddenly we water down the essence of why we're getting together. But if we're super clear about who's invited and why, then we have the potential to create even more meaning within the relationships that we're building within that gathering.
Well, I love what you're saying because you were speaking about the web that brings us sometimes to new identity. And that's what I love, that we can't ever have a community that's same as, but we can have community that supports and understands our pain points, let's say. You're talking about different relationships that activate different facets of who we are and possibly be parts that we don't even recognize or want to know of ourselves. And what does
Mm,
that look like in practice when there are parts of us that we have chosen not to look at or to exile, or parts that we love about ourselves that we want to bring, and that community brings out the best in us, we can say?
mm.
Can you speak a little bit more into that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what you said made me wonder how important it is to be inclusive of all the parts of one's self. Yeah. I mean, that's what being fully integrated and fully human means to me. But the different facets of ourselves as individuals is something that not one person can possibly see or relate to. So when I work with couples, I'm often asking the question, do you have a full identity outside of this relationship? And if the answer is no, that's concerning to me. Yeah,
What is a full
it's
identity?
concerning. A full identity. So for me, I have many facets of who I am that my partner doesn't see. And it's no fault of his. Yeah, we've been together 15 years, but it's no fault of his that that's not the part of me that he relates to. He relates to certain facets of my
That he
identity.
relates to or he doesn't see in terms of in your work, you show up
Uh-huh.
differently than you need to add in your intimate relationship. So,
Of course. I don't think that they've purposely been hidden from him. And I think he actually knows me pretty well. But there
right.
are parts of me that are on the other side of the part that's usually shown to him.
Mm,
And if I don't have other people in my life who mirror and get to witness those other parts of my being,
yes.
my identity is not as rich as it could be. And I think that's where we start to get into a rut if we expect our intimate partner, if we only have one partner that sees the true intimate part of who we are, then we're going to be disappointed. Like
Mhm.
there are parts of us that will just die or be in the shadows and never see the light. But I have a relationship where my partner says, "Sweetheart, you are so full of life. And I know that I only see maybe three or four aspects of your many facets. So please, by all means, like have deep connections with others out in the world so that you can be a more full human being."
And then he also benefits from that.
Of course, he benefits from
You
that.
come, you come back
Yes,
feeling richer and fuller, which is beautiful.
exactly. Exactly. We all benefit from that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is
Yeah.
really,
It's a generative model.
yeah,
Mhm.
and a generous model, I'd say.
I think so.
You
Hmm.
know. For those who are listening, who might feel this longing, how can people begin to intentionally build a community of intimate relationships that are non-romantic but deeply nourishing and nurturing? What would you suggest?
Mm. Well, there are practical tips for building community, right? So I'm someone who actively seeks it out by bringing people together. But I get that that's not for everybody. Not everyone is a community leader that way. But it could be as simple as asking more meaningful questions to the
Mm.
people that you do find yourself around. Yeah. I've taken up a practice of letting people know that I like them.
Mm.
I know it seems so silly, but I'm in a new community, for instance. My son is
Yeah.
starting kindergarten, and there's new parents that I'm meeting all the time. And I'm so excited about building the network of parents around me because this is a community that I'm going to be with for the next 13 years, which is something I haven't had since I was a child. So it's really exciting to me. And let's say there's another mother that I find to be really fascinating and someone that I could really see myself having a great time with. I will go out of my way to tell her, "Hey, I like you. I think we could be friends." And what I have noticed is that just by saying that and naming it creates space for that other person to find it in them to say, "Yes, I'd like that too."
I
And
welcome.
otherwise, it takes years for that to develop. So
Right.
if you want to catalyze and pick up the speed of building meaningful connections, you have to be willing to risk being a bit vulnerable and
Right.
speaking things like that. Yeah, it does take some vulnerability. I like you.
And I love what you said about this is a new community for you, but you're going to be there for the long run. Rather
Yeah.
than there are probably people in the community who don't feel that way. I can always switch if this doesn't pan out for me or work for me. So that's also a lovely part of your personality that shows up.
Mm,
I'm here for the long run. I'm here to make a commitment and make it
absolutely.
good.
That's something maybe more unique to me. I get that not
Right.
everyone commits that way. I'm deeply committed to my friendships. The people I hold closest to me are ones that I've known since I was 3. I have best friends from preschool, from elementary school, junior high school, college.
Beautiful. Those who've seen you through different evolutions and
Yes.
have stayed with that. And of course, there are those who haven't, and that's fine too. You know, maybe they're not supposed to be part of the season of your life. But the ones who stayed through the evolutions, it's a very beautiful gift to have in this world, I think.
It sure is. I always
Blessing.
say you can't make new old friends. You know, it's such a gift to have them in my life for sure. I'm always reminded of that phrase. I always forget it too, but it's like there are people who are in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. I forget what the other one is. It should rhyme, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that helps me in processing the grief of relationships that are not meant to be consistent through the course of my lifetime. I've had very good friends who are in my life for a certain amount of time and then things change and it's appropriate to part ways.
So, three things you need:
What's the 3 things that you need?
geography,
Ah,
that you close, stage, and I think energy, same interest and energy
hmm,
to maintain.
stage. Oh, the stage of your life.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Although that could be, you and I clearly at different stages, but our conversations are rich.
Well, we're in similar stages in more professional ways,
That's
perhaps.
true. Yeah. That's a lovely way
Yeah.
of seeing that. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely, we are. We're colleagues. Going back to the idea that human beings are just beautiful. There is no shortage of human beings who need to be loved on this planet. There's just no shortage of love to go around. And if we see it that way, even strangers, interactions that we have out in the world day to day can become incredibly meaningful and rich. And I might not see that person again. It might be a momentary interaction. But I treat every single human being that I meet in this world with the same open hearted curiosity. And it makes every single moment of my life meaningful.
Beautiful.
There's a lot of loneliness on the planet right now. The statistics on loneliness are through the roof. Yeah, especially we hear teenagers are more depressed and anxious than they've ever been, and that's global. Right? We can probably blame social media for a fair amount of that, perhaps the pandemic as well. But I don't think there's ever a shortage of people to connect with, no matter what stage of life you're in.
Right.
Can-
And what's really beautiful about what you're saying is it's not for you alone. It's not for you alone. It's not for the recipient. It's for your son who is watching you closely. This is how you go through life.
Mhm. Well,
So
that's
that's
a beautiful circling to my whole life for sure. There's a part of me that could say, wow, that's a sort of a selfish way to be. Like, it's all about me. It fulfills my need for meaning.
which it
But
does.
it's not for me alone.
Not
It
you alone.
benefits everyone I interact with, I would imagine. I would hope. Maybe that's not for me to say, but I
I
don't
don't
think
believe
it's
we
for
do
me alone.
anything that's not for us.
Yeah, that's probably true.
We always get something to keep us going.
We need motivation. Absolutely.
Exactly.
There's a selfish gene in humanity.
And I think it's fine.
Often our selfish gene can actually be a great asset to others. And that's the thing that I'm speaking to right here.
Right.
This is selfish. It's for me. I even said that the other day. I gathered a bunch of new parents for this kindergarten class, and I hosted a kindergarten cruiser ride on bicycles around the neighborhood. And I did some connection games. And everyone was so grateful. They said, "This is fabulous. Thanks for putting this together. Thank you for leading us." And I'm like, this is for me. You might
Absolutely.
benefit, but I'm doing it for me. I'm not
Absolutely.
doing it for my kid either. I'm doing it for me.
Absolutely.
But it benefits them all. It benefited my kid. It
Mhm.
benefits the whole community of children that are about to start kindergarten and
And
all
we
the
are no less
parents.
important than those others that are benefiting. Why not? Of course, it benefits us. Why not? That's fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. We don't usually do anything unless it benefits us in some way. Even if it's to help others, it might feel good to us, right?
Absolutely.
Helps
I
us
know
feel like we're good.
we have the
Meaning brings
connection, we
meaning.
won't go into it now, of having
Mm.
worked in prisons. And I remember my father saying to me, was the only one who said to me, wow, you must get so much out of it. Everybody else was, aren't you scared? Aren't you scared? And he honed in. But
Mm.
I want to segue with you to the wonderful work you do with the foundation. You're committed to providing affordable access to relational therapeutic services all the time. You really work hard at that and push that. And you're the director of a nonprofit, Relational Life Foundation. What elements of this work offer healing at a community level and at an individual level? Or could you speak a little bit more into the
Yeah, I
community?
have to speak a little bit to our programs if I'm going to answer that
Thank you.
question. Is that okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay. So yes, the Relational Life Foundation is set out to end loneliness. I get that it's a big mission, but I think we start with individuals, we start with couples, we start with family units, and broaden out to communities and eventually to the whole world. But we have programs that are for communities, and we have programs that are for individuals and for couples. And it's all at a sliding scale or free. So through Relational Life Foundation, people can access private therapy with practitioners who are studying RLT, relational life therapy. They've offered their services. They're working to become certified in the model, and they want to practice. They want to offer back to the world this model that they're learning because they see how powerful it is. And so they make their work accessible for a sliding scale, so a pay what you can feature. Individuals and couples can access private therapy, relational therapy. And then on a much broader scale, I host community conversation series, which is a quarterly series. And sometimes I'm the host, sometimes other practitioners are the hosts. So I don't mean to claim it as mine. We bring together communities to talk about topics of relationship as it relates to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so we've had topics about vulnerability, about sexuality, about shame, and we weave them back into DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. I hosted one about the identity of being a mother and moving into a new identity of myself, matrescence. We've had one about polyamory and looking at the intersection of relational life therapy with the polyamory frameworks by Jessica Fern. And so we bring in different leaders to host these panel discussions, and then we have community conversation around it.
So that's also educational piece that you offer.
That's educational. Yeah, absolutely. And it's community building.
Yeah.
Those are all virtual, by the way. Nearly everything we do is virtual, but we also work with practitioners. We partner with relational life therapy practitioners, such as yourself, Bev, to host events, workshops, and groups. So the most common one that we have is called the Relationship Bootcamp, which is an RLT model. It's a 2-day framework. And practitioners all over the world are hosting these 2-day boot camps for couples and individuals to deepen their relational skill set. And we offer all of those at a sliding scale through Relational Life Foundation. And then there's groups like the one that you're hosting this coming September, where you're gathering couples for an ongoing weekly workshop. So they get ongoing support and community of other couples to process with and to practice, right? Practice groups, I think they could be called.
Right. And all, as you say, community-based.
Community-based and all sliding scale.
Yeah, when we do these groups, it's beautiful to see the diversity of the people who join us. I always find that so enriching. So as we wrap up, relationships aren't always smooth, right? What's it truly mean to stay in relationship through chaos and mess? And how do you personally tend to your own sense of connection?
Relationships can be messy. For sure. The more intimate they are, the more messy they can become, particularly because our family of origin wounding, which we all have at some level, gets kicked up in our more intimate relationships. It brings out unhealed patterns of relating. And what I think takes practice and patience and practice and lived experience is that the more we recognize that we are living systems and all living systems go through chaos to evolve, I now get excited when conflict arises, especially when I'm working with a couple, because they can't see it, right? They're in it, they're feeling the pain of the conflict. But from the outside, as I'm holding them in that container of health, I can see that if they stay and continue to see one another and find a willingness to be seen and understood, that what they can create on the other side of that conflict is an evolved partnership. So I get excited when conflict emerges.
Right.
Because I know that something better is on the other side. And I think that takes practice, right? And lived experience over and over and over to get to that point of trust in the conflict.
Taking a risk and being vulnerable, but you will, on the other side, is a deeper connection, which you can get to. That's so beautiful. This has been such a rich, transformative conversation. I just want to thank you. I always enjoy our conversations. We've had several without filming ourselves necessarily, but this has been a special one. Thank you for sharing your insights and for challenging us. I will really say you've really challenged the way I think. Thank you for that. To think more
Thanks for asking the questions
about love and connection.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Bev. It's a real honor to chat with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Facets of Connection. This show is brought to you by Relational Life Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the chronic epidemic of loneliness by fostering community and transforming relationships. Its mission is focused on building stronger, more connected communities through research on relational health and through accessible therapeutic services and education. If you'd like to support this work, visit relationallifefoundation.org. Your generosity helps us make relational support available and accessible to more communities. On another note, I'd love to hear from you. Whether you've taken a workshop through Relational Life Foundation, if you're working with an RLT therapist, or simply if you have a guest or a topic to recommend for a future episode of Facets of Connection. I want to know, what's resonating with you? What's shifting? Or what are you still sitting with? Send me a quick voice memo or an email to Sarah with an H at facetsofconnection.com. Your story might even be featured in a future episode. I look forward to hearing from you. Facets of Connection is created by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. Our executive producer is Carrie Allison Maloney, and our digital producer is Kim Novak. Follow us here on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thank you in advance for your support. See you soon.